everybody, what's up? We are here, Outcast Haven Podcast, with episode number 17. I am joined tonight to talk some DBS by Michael Berg, the Iceberg.
Hello.
Bergie. He prefers Bergie. That's okay. And I got Dane, my boy Nichols, here with me.
What's going on, guys?
And unfortunately, we're missing the sleepy boy himself, Robert. He is feeling a little under the weather. We are Minnesotans, and as much as we don't mind the cold, it is not enjoyable right now.
No, it gets to you sometimes, right? Yeah. I feel like every seasonal change, it just, when am I going to get sick? It's terrible.
Yeah. It hits you hard. The cold comes on hard.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start real quick. We're gonna talk a little bit about the tournament results. I know Berg and myself and Robert, we all played in the tournament this last weekend. It was good. It was not without a little bit of controversy. I don't know if we'll touch that or not. We'll see how it goes.
Oh no, we're touching it.
We're touching it. But we're going to talk about the results quick. I've got results. So the results, I have names. I don't know exactly what everyone was playing. I can tell you a few of them. I know Ali won again with Reboot Gohan. His list was on Joey's channel, which was an interesting list. There was some interesting tech in there that definitely, I think, fixes a few of Gohan's problems. Kyle Thompson got second. I know his deck because he's playing Sin Shenron, and he runs admin, started a Shadow Dragon Empire group, and I'm in. So I know that he got second. And then Andrew Klinger and Jason Scott were third and fourth. And then we know fifth was Puna, and he was playing Red Broly, which that's just in and of itself like a top five for Broly. That hasn't happened since the tournament back when Frank Miller went top. Like other than that, like Broly has had kind of this weird, because of the promo kind of a situation.
Yeah, he hasn't been a huge part of the field in general because of the promo, I'm assuming. And then the results haven't been great, but yeah, it was good to see Puna take it there.
Yeah, I was say Dane is a Red Broly player, so he's excited to see that Red Broly can hang in a field with the promos and everything. We just have as a team, we have to rally the troops and get Dane for those promo Brolys.
Right. So. Yeah. Everyone open their packs. I'll sell my soul.
What's up, Bergie?
I know Klinger was running Gotenks. He's a good friend of Dom's, and I was in the Discord call and asked him what it was.
Oh,
the morning of the tournament.
Cool. Yeah. So then third place was Gotenks, which that's an interesting. Even if you look at the top five, we don't know what 4 was. It's good for a game, right? Because if you look at the top 5, you have Reboot Gohan, Sin Shenron, Gotenks, something, and Red Broly. Like that's a really diverse top 5 because you're talking about one deck that wants to win on turn 2 and another deck that wants to play to like turn 8. And then you've got a really utility green deck in Gotenks, and you have Broly. And maybe most important is the fact that you have 3 colors represented in the top 5. If that's assuming that fourth place was a different color or wasn't a different color, which it potentially could have been. So
I think fourth was Majin Vegeta.
Was it Majin Vegeta?
I remember I saw a video about 4th and 8th place. I think we're both Majin Vegetas, but I'm not
still
positive.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was, I mean, still we got 3 colors and we've got 5 decks potentially in the top 5. Which, when you're talking about any card game, if you have a top 5 made up of 5 different decks, that's an indication that you have a healthy meta and a really healthy game. So is there anything specific that you guys take away from that other than those 2 things or around those 2 concepts?
Green's probably the best color right now, in my opinion, just because of the Dormant and being able to cycle back through your hand. Like Dormant's so powerful right now, and Frieza's pretty strong as well, and has access to some really, really good unisons and things like the Vegito unison specifically for Gotenks, Demigra for Gohan if you need to kill those barrier things like against Invoker, and Dark Broly for Majin Vegeta. We've already talked about how good Dark Broly is. I love that card so much.
Yeah. And I think that to Bergie's point, like Green's really strong, but I don't feel like I feel like this is the closest the colors have been other than like yellow. Yellow's pretty decently far behind. Its shtick isn't really comparable to like just like the ramp or control that blue has these days, or the I mean, I would say green's got a ton of control. I love the fact that Majin Vegeta is not hand control-y, or at least the way that I play it, and the way that a lot of people play it is not hand control-y. I like that I can play green now without feeling bad about myself as a human being because
Hey.
of just destroying the opponent's hand. But yeah, I think that it's like a pretty good indication that the meta is in a healthy place. I mean, you've got black decks, I say that about yellow being far behind, and Sin's right there, right? Like it's number 2.
Yeah.
So I can only say so much on that regard. But I think overall, in general, as a color,
yeah, it's the deck that I think has the least representation across the board, right? Like red maybe, because I mean, other than Broly, you don't see a lot of red decks. There you have Bulma, which is a really interesting deck, but seems really erratic. In its finishes, is like it'll have a top finish and then it'll just not, you won't see it in the top 8 or top 16. Which is interesting. I don't know if that's just because it just gets aggroed super hard early game and can't keep up because it can't play enough blockers on low energy since it's a red deck. So Broly, is king because it runs faster. Sin is interesting because like Sin has a shtick, but that shtick is really good, right? Like that, what it does is really efficient, is really strong, because I think what makes it work is that it's got absurd recursion. Like if you want to kill my Sin, that's fine. I'll probably just get it back next turn anyway, and you're going to give me 2 cards out of it. So at the end of the day, like it has just absurd recursion, and it's able to just stick with a lot of decks. And I think people are teching it right. The biggest issue it runs into a lot of times is that who knows if Kyle could have gone 6-0, because in classic fashion, Sin finishes 5-0 and 1, because at some point it's going to run into another slow deck and they're just going to grind each other to death. So, that's what it does. But it is like, it's a really interesting meta. I think it's a really healthy meta. And honestly, like we've only been playing the game, around a year, a little less than a year.
Yeah.
But as players, even in our time, like it feels really diverse. Like every color seems to have multiple decks that can kind of do something and play an interesting game. And I think that's just, it's so good for the game, because you still even have in a monocolor format, you still have Invoker hanging on and making its presence known, which means that you still have a multicolor deck. So it's cool. It's good to see. And I think going into the draft box 6, they're making enough support for multicolor that you'll see some multicolor decks come back. But in a manageable way, right?
Yeah,
not overpowered.
And you've got Invoker, which is like a really strongly represented multicolor deck, I'd say, by comparison. But like even other like you've got Surge Broly still out there. I don't know if there's a lot of people on like Agro Cell or on any form of cell. People are always going to bring stuff, right? Like it's the whole sea of fizz that they talk about, where people are always going to bring rogue decks. There.
And I said you got to be YouTube friendly there, Dan.
Yeah.
He stayed there.
I did. I kept it PG. So like you're always gonna have rogue decks that sneak in there, and 1.5 tier 1.5 decks that sneak into top cuts and stuff like that. But I feel like with how wide the top cut itself is with different deck builds, that I can't. I'm trying to think, like, when was the meta this diverse? I feel like last format it was very like Vegeks, Invoker, go, like, you know what I mean? Like there was like 3-4 decks, but I mean I feel like that's what exists in blue right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really, I think it's a really fun time to be playing the game and experimenting with stuff.
Yeah, it feels like there are multiple colors that have multiple decks that people have you hear constantly, right, on all these different podcasts and stuff. Everybody's talking about what's the best deck in green, what's the best deck in blue, what's the best deck in, and it's like the fact that you can ask that question and not have somebody be like, come on man, like you sound like an idiot.
Yeah,
like, are you kidding me? Like, what's the best deck in blue? Come on. It's like, what's the best deck in blue? Well, we've got somewhere between 3 and 5 options that somebody could argue. And I think most people would maybe get to the same place with 2 or 3.
Really arguably.
Yeah. But I think the fact that like people are willing to argue another point and it doesn't sound insane is good for the game.
Yeah.
So
even black, you can be like, don't have to just say Vegeks or Vajax or whatever people are saying.
Dark Broly exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, I mean, depending on how much you get to play, like Dark Broly is a viable option too. So
yeah, and it's cool. And the deck archetypes themselves are it's interesting because the decks they have a lot of them have a really big chunk of the deck built for you, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of tech people are playing or people play the different styles. And each of those decks, I think the reason that the meta feels so healthy, right, is because if you look at all of those decks, they're all such unique play styles
Mhm.
that it creates there's no such thing as like best deck wins because
Mhm.
you can't build a deck to just beat aggro because the format's aggro. It's like
Right.
if you want to build, you have to
Yeah.
build a deck. Like look at the meta. In order to get first place, you have to theoretically build a deck that could beat Sin Shenron and reboot Gohan. Like that's as
Mhm.
far apart as two decks could be in play style and how they want to approach the game. And you have to find a way to build a deck that beats both of those and is
Right. Right.
competitively viable. It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy. And
Actually,
I think that's good. So Bergie, you and I know Dane played in one. Bergie, you've now played in a few with me and Robert in the webcam events. What do you think of the webcam format? I know that's like a big topic of discussion, right?
Alrighty, number one, people saying it's not really to shut up. You're wrong. Incorrect opinion. Get out of here. It's a tournament. I'm sorry. It's a
Bergie,
tournament.
bringing the
Doesn't
heat.
matter. Yes, best of one sucks. Best of three should be the way we play, but time is time, and time is important. And we already have long enough rounds. Um, to the people saying that everyone's auto cheating because they have a mediocre webcam, stop. Please just stop assuming people are going to cheat just to cheat. Like, assuming the worst out of someone just feels horrible, especially in a card game where we're supposed to be having fun the entire time. I know it's cheesy and corny and I need to shut up, but I don't really care.
you're
I'm
so
going off
naive
right
and
now.
young. You young naive boy. People don't do this for fun.
People don't do this for fun. No, no, we need to make my opponent cry. That's why I play Invoker, but it's fine.
Yeah,
No,
you actually
I
do.
think online events are great. I think they're a great way during the pandemic and everything going on to make sure that's going on. And the in-person events are starting back up at smaller scales, and people are being safe and hand sanitizer and masks and socially distancing, which is the important thing. And I think we can slowly kind of mesh them together into a sort of hybrid tournament structure. And slowly we can go more into in-person as things get safer and safer, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think overall, I think it's unfortunate that anybody would view any of this stuff as people not taking it seriously. I get that people drop, right? Like people go X2 and drop,
People
or
drop at
even X1.
IRL
But
tournaments too.
I'll say,
Like,
but have you ever
Mm-hmm.
been to a real tournament like that's like serious? People drop at those too because if you're going there to compete and you want to win and you go X2, you drop because you're not going to win. So you can go play because a lot of the real life events, right? The big ones, they have side events. So you
Mm-hmm.
go play side events or do something fun with your friends because it's not fun. I think some people are like, well, I could finish 6-2. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, but that doesn't feel any better than just dropping 3-2 because at the end of the day, the X2 you're not making top cut, so you basically
Yeah.
played out of the tournament. Other people have fun with it, and that's fine. I think either way, you're good. I think the reality is like to Bergie's point. At the end of the day, like when people talk about, well, people are cheating, well, people are cheating, well, people are cheating. I think what people are doing in that sense a lot of times is trying to make themselves feel better about their results or whatever, but what they're really doing is making the community look bad. Like it that saying that like cheating is not happening on like this mass scale doesn't make you as a player look better. It makes the community as a whole look worse, which is really
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate because our experience as again newer players, not people who have been around forever, is that this is a really good community and like most
Yeah.
people in this community are really good dudes and have and dudettes.
Yeah.
uh and people are really welcoming and inviting, and most of the games, right, I've played in multiple webcam events now, and almost every single game has been a great experience, laughing and joking, having a good time playing a stranger with some of the jankiest setups, right? Like I have an actual setup, I have a mic and everything, and then I got other guys who like have their phone leaning on like a book and they're like sitting cross-legged on the floor, but I don't care. I just want to play games with people, and I
Yeah.
think it's a good experience overall.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting too that like the cheating thing, like we're coming from a background of like, yeah, we're new to this game relatively, right? But like we've played other card games
Oh
together
yeah.
even, and I think that yeah, this community is super healthy and really fun. And if you're gonna talk about like people cheating online, like unless you're one like a top 4 or 5 regular contender or someone who's a part of like a really well-known content creating crew, like unless you're gonna give like real solid feedback about ways to solve the problem, yeah, to your point, Blake, you don't sound like you're a better player. Like, oh, this person, like, they're for sure cheating. Like, everybody out there, I can guarantee you, you might have like a fanboy or two that are like your buddies that are going to comment and be like, yeah, it's bull, whatever. But for the most part, 99.9% of people reading your comment are thinking, yeah, this dude's bitching a lot. Like
Yeah.
he got to play, you know, he got to have fun. So
Yeah.
I don't think that comes across how those people think it comes across, and it
Yeah.
does make us look bad as a community, which sucks. So
It kind of feels it's like
I hate people that don't offer solutions. Quit bitching if you don't have
Yeah.
a thing to solve the problem. Bitching
Yeah.
for bitching's sake
Agreed.
doesn't solve anything unless you're trying to blow off steam with like a couple buddies at the end of the day. Go ahead
Yeah.
and complain like, oh, it sucked. But
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is like everybody has been in the situation, right, where you're like trying to order food at a fast food joint or you're trying to buy something at the grocery store, and there's that person who's making some absurd claim to the manager, and they're just like scolding somebody relentlessly over something that everybody else is just looking at, going, "Oh, this poor person. They do not deserve to be treated this way." That's what you kind of come off as, right? Like you come
Yeah.
off as the person complaining to the manager because you weren't paying attention and something happened, or you ordered something wrong and now you want it fixed because you deserve it. And it's like, who cares? At the end of the day, I think the webcam events are great. They're super healthy. Obviously, everybody wants to play in real life events, right? Everybody
Right.
wants to sit across from people. You know, we joke about it all the time. Dane and I love to play blue, a card that goes into a lot of our decks is Mofuba. And when we play as a group, like, right, there's something Robert will literally shove a card across and he'd go, put it on there in real life, man. We're sitting here, like, put it on there. Like,
It's in person. We don't got to pretend anymore. Go ahead and
yeah,
move
we
it
don't
out.
have to. You don't have to set it up and look at it and make me flip my card over. So
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like webcam events, it's a necessary evil right now. I'm happy that it's happening. I'm happy that Bandai is putting the work into making it happen. And if you have a local that you can go to, go do it. And you can make it, go do it. If you feel safe, go do it. If you don't, keep playing webcam events and grind and untap, and that's fine. Like just support the community and just make it healthy.
And like and I don't want people to think too that we're just like blowing rainbows up people's butts, because like you, Blake, I know you'll never complain about it because you're still getting out of the events what you want, but like you got cheated on like in the last round of the last tournament. Like, and I know that you're not gonna bring it up. You didn't make a bitching post about it because it's not gonna solve anything, because you just want the webcam events to still be good and get participation. But yeah, like you ask a guy how many cards in hand, he tells you, and then at the end of the tournament you go for game, he combos with more than that out of hand. It's like, oh, where'd that come from? Because you for sure haven't drawn at all this turn. So that's interesting that you comboed with 4 cards when you told me you had 2 or 3 in hand or whatever it was.
It didn't feel great, but at the end of the day, like, you know, it wasn't for winning. And you know what, like honestly, I think Android mentioned it, his thing about the webcam. I don't know if you guys have watched that, but he even said, he's like, if you're really that worried about it, just record your rounds, like have proof that something happened if you're really worried about it. So I mean, that's a solution people can use too. So,
and then when you're done with the game and you feel like posting to the community bitching about the thing that you know still don't have a solution for, just delete the video, but make yourself feel good for recording it. See, I told you, and then delete it and don't share it with anyone because no one really gives a shit.
Because no one really cares. Yeah. If it didn't happen for you to go 6-0, nobody cares.
Right. Should we address?
Oh, Couscous? Yeah, Emperor Couscous. I think that's an unfortunate situation. I think Android made a really good point that if Top Cut is going to make a point to be like a hard ass about it, like they need to make sure that that's always the line they draw in the sand, and that's the line they draw in the sand for everybody, and it's the line they draw in the sand for themselves. Like you can't be a TO and say like, hey, if you're past time, then you're getting punished, and then as a TO, like run around late, ever, under any circumstances. You can never have an excuse for firing a round 5 minutes late because you're the hard ass TO, right? Like that's who you are.
Also, I heard that the reporting website was not good. Sorry to cut you off, but I heard that it was kind of buggy, and we've had a couple of different websites, and I think the one during Gen Con was a little bit better just because of how easy it was to do.
Yeah, I actually thought that like personally, I know it's more work for the TOs, but I thought reporting to the judges, like to the reporting channel on Discord, was easier because it had a timestamp and it was just to type it in. There was no question as to whether or not the website worked, because again, we're not like, Couscous doesn't strike me as a guy who's gonna lie just to lie. because right, like winning an event like this doesn't give him more clout. He's Emperor Couscous, right? Everybody knows who he is. He's
Mhm.
got a good following. People appreciate him. He's good for the community. So he doesn't really have a reason to lie to look better, especially because he was playing with one of the super players. So like it wasn't just two randos, that were playing. It's like,
Mhm.
they don't have any reason to lie to like gain clout. Like they're both big name guys in the community and people really like them. So I personally, I definitely didn't love, like I had issues a couple times where I was like refreshing the page and things didn't show up the way that I like they should have shown up. Like they was a
Mhm.
little laggy or off. So again, I'm not saying the reporting software did bug out, but I am saying like that's my experience was that it
Yeah,
wasn't the
it's not
best
beyond the realm of
interaction. Yeah.
possibility that it was just a bad circumstance by someone who, I mean, yeah, like you said, he has no reason to
Yeah.
lie about
I,
that.
I think
So
it was an unfortunate situation where again, it really could have been resolved by just saying like, hey man, let's just get this thing figured out. Let's move on. Because that's what you should do, right? If you're a TO, is if somebody doesn't report their round, like aren't you gonna holler at them at an in real life event? And if they
Mhm.
do it, won't you just ask them as opposed to being like, hey, you need to go report it to the table over there. I'm a judge. I'm going back there anyway. Who won the event? Or like who won the round? Um, it was an easy solution, but again, I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like a TO in that situation ultimately is going to come off looking bad no matter what if they didn't just resolve the issue then and there. Because at the end of the day, I think it does put them in a position where they now have to be the hard ass TO. Like they have to be that because that's the line they've drawn in the sand and that's what they've said they're going to do.
Yep. I mean, that's the stance that they take now. So that's it.
Yeah.
And in the moment that they break that, they're going to get flamed. So,
Yeah. And it's just hard because like the community is not right. You're not roasting some random guy. It
mhm.
is a guy well liked by the community. So again, right, like people are always going to say, well, you don't treat people differently because of who they are.
Yep.
Okay, are we all really that stupid like to not think that people get treated differently because they're famous? like like you don't think a famous person gets to skip security at the airport? You don't think that's the case?
Yeah.
Like, I
I mean,
don't do. I think
I still
that's.
agree. Like, I don't, I'll be honest, I don't think that,
I don't think he should get treatment. I do. What I'm saying is, as a TO, you have to understand the backlash that you're going to create by creating a negative experience for a positive community member.
yeah.
If you roast Joey and go after Joey in the comment section on the discussion page where all of the players watch, you think that's going to go well for you?
Yeah,
No.
probably not.
I mean,
Yeah.
whether or not you're right, it doesn't matter, right? Like at the end of the day, that's the unfortunate reality is whether or not you're right, it doesn't matter. You just have to realize the negative experience that people are going to report now for you as an organizer.
Yeah, I think my problem is more so like where in the standings you're making these hard decisions at. I think
Yeah,
that's my issue with it. It's less like who he is and more where it's taking place at. If you're 1-4 and you don't report, yeah, sorry, bud, you get a loss. Like it's just where we're at with it. If you're,
yeah,
gonna be, if you're gonna be doing a little better than that, then maybe have some flexibility with making sure that you're getting the results because people want to see the top decks. How crappy is that if
yeah.
bugs out, Joey doesn't report, and all of a sudden someone who is going to be in the top 8 isn't in the top 8, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's lame because you want to see the
If
top deck.
someone
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone takes a loss and it affects the standings, because say for example, so Marcus won
Yep.
and they got a double loss because they failed to report, which made him end at 4-2, which put him in 33rd versus 5-1, which at the very lowest would have put him at 12th.
Yeah.
It does alter the tournament structure and it
Yep.
does change who the top players are. And that is where you start to create your issues, right? Is again, to Dane's point, I don't think who you are, any of that. I don't think that. I do
Mm-hmm.
think that whether people want to admit it or not, that does affect people's decisions. But at the end of the day, if it affects the tournament standings, that's the more concerning thing. Let the top players play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the level of play should be considered.
There should be
Just
accommodation just
just
because of
make
what's happening.
accommodations for
Yep.
everybody. Like
Yeah.
make it better make it a great experience for everybody. Keep the game healthy. So moving on to the draft box, what are you guys' thoughts overall on what's been revealed? We obviously have a little bit left, not a lot. We're recording this on a Wednesday night, so like it's possible when it released on Friday that we see most of the rest of the cards because we obviously have a day in between. But so far, we're through blue and we've seen green, and so like in red as far as unisons go. So we're short on the red or on the yellow, but that's okay. So far, what do you guys think of the draft box on the
Already hot
reveals?
take. All the green unisons suck. I'm sorry, they all do. They just do. You should not be playing them. Like every single one of them has just a strictly better version of itself.
That already exists. Yeah, I was pretty underwhelmed with the green. I was kind of holding out hope that there'd be something spicy I could maybe throw into like my Majin Vegeta, like more mid range build I'm working on. But it's like Dark Broly and SS4 Vegeta or SS3 Vegeta are pretty much all I could ask for. So it would need to be something special, which none of those were.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
I think the only green one that sees play is going to be the Hirudegarn one in the Hirudegarn deck, and that's it. Yeah. There's no other archetype where it's good.
Now red.
Also, Mai's gonna get hit immediately, or at least it probably will, just because of how much people are saying. I don't know how it will get hit. I think it'll honestly get hit to once per game effect or something like that. I think that might fix it. That might actually make it terrible, but they might just remove barrier from it, which would probably save a lot of problems. Yeah. But that card is just going to make blue almost unplayable sometimes.
I just think the only decks that care about Dimension Magic really in the grand scheme of things are going to be decks like aggro decks that don't want to get Dimension Magic 3 times in the first 3 turns. But let's be honest for a second. If you're playing Broly or if you're playing Gohan, are you wasting 1 energy and 1 turn to play your
Gohan? Yes.
card?
Gohan on turn 1, you can just play it and draw 1, be like, cool. Because on turn 2, you just go Newfound Power. I think that's what the name of the card is.
Have you ever played Gohan, Bergie? No, on turn 1.
I mean, if you're not swinging turn 1, you just pay 1 and play it. I'm saying, like, why establish Newfound Power on turn 1 when you can't swing with it?
Right. When you don't swing, you play Demigra, so you have access to the Frieza counterplay to get more bodies. That's the only option. You don't play a cantrip, and that stops Dimension Magic, because at the end of the day, they're dying no matter what. So it's only happening once per turn.
I think severely undervaluing the card, but
I just don't see a world where it makes sense to go 4 of in a deck. Sure, you sideboard in a best of 3. Blue sideboards things like Final Hope Slash or the Mom Bulma. It's just stuff that bounces it and makes it harder for you to play and makes it less like. Good blue players will play around it with no problem.
And it's too sticky to like be a widely used card. Like it does something really cool and kind of broken, but yeah, like you said, blue players are going to play around it. You're going to just, okay, so I don't get to restand 1 of my energy. I'm still going to do a lot, so I'll be fine until I have an answer for that card in my hand. But I think that the hype for Mai almost reminds me of the Kritza from Draft Box 5. The combo crit. Like,
yeah, it's gonna break the game.
Sky is falling. You can give anything crit. How many decks run that?
Majin Vegeta should.
I don't think so.
The issue is this. This is what I always come back to on cards like this. It's not energy efficient in almost any deck that wants to play it. Mm-hmm. No deck that really wants to play that card that it creates that those cards create issue for are going to have the efficiency to play that card and still do what they want to do, because decks that don't want to see Dimension Magic are decks that need to like use their energy to do things to play faster. It's not the decks that want to play, like mid-range decks don't care about Dimension Magic. It's just a negate. Like it doesn't bother them because it's a negate. The issue for the decks that Dimension Magic creates issues for are decks that want to aggro hard, and those decks don't have early game efficiency to play that card. Like they want to do other things.
But Blake, here's my question. Against any mid-range deck, like let's say Gotenks, how many times have I gone Grim Reaper swing Dimension Magic, Grim Reaper swing Dimension Magic, swing lead, Trunks TP? You wouldn't be able to do that. You just negate 1 swing and then you take 3.
I would cycle my turn differently, and I would Trunks TP instead. I would just play slower, which is what blue wants to do anyway. All you're doing is playing slower for me. Like you're choosing to play 1 turn slower to let me, because you don't go Kuel turn 1, you play your green cycle card. Cool. You go Kuel turn 2. Now you're behind. Now I play baby sooner in my Soul Striker. Now I get awakened sooner. Now I'm a 15k. I have less combo. I have more access to protection. My TP happens more. I draw more cards. Like you just gave me an extra turn. Thank you.
You play the Mai on 2 after you awaken. But...
Well, yeah, but I get it. But what I'm saying is, again, it's an efficiency issue. Like you're putting 4 cards that you already say my deck is so tight for space. I don't know what else I would put in this deck or take out to put stuff in. So why would you just all of a sudden slam 4 cards in there that literally only affect like 2 cards in the entire game?
Because what it does to those 2 cards just makes them completely invalidated. The
Cool.
issue is that it is a staple in blue decks to run those cards, and the moment that you play Mai, you just say that card does nothing. It is a pay 1 negate. That is something that we had in set 1. That is it.
Okay,
you can pick up a life pool and negate
that's not worth it to take up those deck slots and to spend that energy on that, because you gotta think too. Like I think in best of 3, it's gonna be a staple. Or unless you're in blue playing that, like that's an energy that you're using that you're not getting back. You're not going to be able to recover from that energy spent, right? Like,
yeah.
So I think that
and it is unequivocally,
we'll see what happens.
And it is unequivocally a disgustingly bad card against 4 colors. Mm-hmm. What good does it do? Cycle means nothing when
it takes up space in your sideboard. That's all. It takes up.
You're going to get absolutely burned to the ground by Broly because you have a cantrip in hand turn 1 instead of Gokul. Like it's so bad. Like you mess up your ratios, you screw up your efficiency of your deck. Also, you can hit Dimension Magic.
Like that card is broken and should not have seen the printer. That is the problem. The card, what it does, it just completely shuts down certain archetypes and just makes blue.
It doesn't shut down archetypes.
It doesn't shut down archetypes.
It shuts down Baby. Baby cannot function when you have that card on table.
Yes, you can. Oh my God, you still can.
No, you cannot.
Yes, you can.
They run Bulma. They run the Mom Bulma that bounces it back and gives them a body and establishes something. And they're fine, and it bounces it.
So you're wasting deck space
but Baby doesn't care about deck space. It wants to play 42 turns. So who cares if they just keep bouncing 1-drops? Cool, I bounce your 1-drop. Your turn's over. I win.
That card is bad. That card is actually broken.
It's not.
It's the worst thing of that Dropbox.
It's really not.
I'm just glad that this is on record and we've got it recorded so that when it comes out and Michael's like, so we're gonna be like, Michael, where's that cantrip that you got that you're gonna break my deck with?
I think you guys are
and
wrong.
You're gonna be like, it's in my sideboard. It's like, and all these best of 1 tournaments that we're playing.
Good. I think that card limits blue from being the best color in the game, specifically because the moment that happens, you just have a silver bullet for it. You can never have a good blue deck be the best deck in format.
It's not even a silver bullet for blue.
Not a silver
bullet. Yes, it is. No, it is a silver bullet.
How does it? Here's a better question.
Yeah, I think you're overestimating. I think Blake and I are same page.
Here you go. Here's a great question for you. Best blue deck in the format. Who's the best leader going into draft box 6 for blue? I'll answer the question for you.
Or Vegito, one of the two.
It's Vegito, because Vegito's going to get access to some huge body Bardock apes that are going to be played as blockers. So they're going to swing at you double strike. They're going to restand. And then if you kill them and you commit your hand to killing that thing, they're going to gain value. And then you're going to cantrip this god-awful card, and they're going to laugh in your face because they don't care about Dimension Magic. They're going to block the shit out of you. They're going to block every attack you have coming in, and they're going to gain value out of it. And you're going to go, oh, why can't I win this matchup? Because then they're going to turn around after you wasted energy playing a cantrip, and they're going to triple strike your face with a Baby Unison or a Zeno Unison that's what Vegito does. Dimension Magic is a random card in the best blue deck going into the draft box 6 format.
I think that the card is bad because it can limit design space going into the future. You can't have a counter-based blue deck anymore because that card will stop all restanding.
I think you still can.
I mean, it's fine.
I think it'll be hard, and I think it'll be worse. Like Baby was already like 1.5 at best, and now it's just
so it kills a bad blue deck. It doesn't kill the whole archetype of blue.
But here's the question: how does it do in Soul Striker? How does Soul Striker deal with it?
It doesn't. It's not that worried about it.
It doesn't. Exactly. It doesn't deal with it. That's the problem.
But have very minimal options. I don't need to deal with it. Like I don't need to deal with it because the first couple turns I'm just trying to live anyway, so I can get to turn 3. Once we get to turn 3, unless you've done 5 damage to me, we're probably going to turn 7 or 8. Because at that point, I get to do a bunch of stuff on my turn. I get to restand 2 energy. I'm going to protect my thing. And then as soon as you swing at me, I'm going to Trunks TP you. I'm going to do it 4 turns in a row. I'm going to Baby Hatch you. Then I'm going to Android 17 turning the Tide you. Like that's what that deck wants to do over and over and over. It wants to monkey you. The monkey doesn't care about restanding energy. It's 1 card in Soul Striker and it's 1 card in Vegito, and it's not the best card in the deck by a long shot.
I think that the card does broken things. and they promised they would never make silver bullets again. And I don't care how good it matters.
I think deep down, here's what I think it is. I think deep down, Bergie is personally hurt that the deck it hurts more than anything is Invoker.
Shut up.
Absolutely
No.
rips him to the. It burns Invoker to the ground because Invoker survives by restanding or energy on Dimension Magics early, so that way it can get to turn 3 and 4.
You found out the reason. You know why? That's a problem because it just shuts down a deck. It just says your deck does not function. I hope you have Death Beam. Good job. Good luck.
Welcome to
pay one,
Power
play
Creep.
the card, you lose the game. Good job.
Yeah.
Welcome to card games. It's called Power Creep, and it happens. Invoker has had its
going
time
away
to shine.
at some point.
It's had its time to shine for multiple sets, and it's time to go.
Yeah.
So
no, I don't even think
you're just mad because I keep cap blowing you for 7.
I mean, I don't care about that. Like that's again, Invoker.
I'm 3-1 with Majin Vegeta into it. I feel fine.
I think that card is bad. So I don't like it. You can disagree, and that's totally fine. But I personally think that it's a bad card.
It is bad.
I think it's bad in the sense that it's good in the game. It's too good.
Play it.
I think that the card should not exist because of what it says that they can do in the future.
I'm gonna have to edit this so much. This is
okay.
This is so ungodly too long.
It's true. It's too long. But here's my final point. Are you ready? If it's so bad, why are people like Eggman and Joey and Android, top tier players who have podcasts, basically saying it's just So are they bad and they have terrible takes? Or do you think that they just have no clue what they're talking about when it comes to that card? They've been playing this game for 3 years. I think they know a bad card when they see it.
I think that I'd rather trust those who have actually known and played against more. And at locals, the general consensus is that card should not have been printed. Yes, they're good, but I mean, I'm consulting people like Anthony and Dane, and they're saying that card shouldn't exist. And I trust them a lot as well.
You trust them more than Eggman?
Yes, I know Eggman. Dane. I know Anthony. I don't know Eggman.
Right.
The thing is, I trust the people that consistently beat me.
Like Eggman's got the hardware, and at the end of the day, right? Who's got the trophies knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wouldn't see. I don't want to go so far as to say that. I don't want to go so far as to say that Dane or Anthony or
no, I'm not saying they don't know. I'm just saying.
I can't believe you've done this.
I'm not saying they don't know. What I'm saying is, if it was universally bad, it would be absolutely just it would be the only topic of discussion coming out of the draft box. It was really a hot take when Mai came out, and since then nobody even cares because people realize that like blue is not the best deck in the format, so like they don't really care because it doesn't hit the top tier deck.
Mark my words.
I'm teching against fourth through 8th place for sure. I'm gonna make my tech against that. Who cares about 1st through 4th? I'm teching against.
Don't tech against Gohan. Tech against
1.5 decks. Yep. Not even. Don't say blue because you're teching against Dimension Magic.
Dimension Magic. One card.
But God, it's broken. That's gonna ruin the game.
Gohan's gonna like that card. I'm just gonna say it. I think it'll like the card.
That's all right. I'm a little hurt. I know that Bergie fanboys for other Dane a little bit, but
he gave me an Apex for the weekend. Okay, I can be a little thankful.
Last weekend you played with a card in your deck that was more expensive than Apex. Who let you borrow that?
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
But that's a freaking bug. That does not look good. Apex looks amazing.
He's
Zeno's more of a broken
He's
card.
ungrateful. Yeah. I think at the core,
I am grateful. Thank you. I'm doing the thank you hands.
I was so nonchalant about it. I was like, yeah, take my Zeno. He's like, can I take it out of like the perfect fit sleeve so I can put it in my deck? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like I trust you. And then just nothing. Just radio silence. Don't care.
Bergie's gonna be like, all right, I sold enough, Dane. I have the cash for Zeno, and Dane's gonna go.
No, I want it back.
Why would I buy Zeno? I want to buy Apex, dude.
Yeah.
So, Draft Box 6. Is there anything left that hasn't been revealed that you hope for? Is there something? What does yellow need to be relevant? Is there something in yellow
Goku's lineage support?
Our group chat has been blown up by Goku's lineage support. Like it's
so good. It's not good at all. Excuse me. It's so terrible. Good. It's not good. But I want support for it because I want it to be good.
Bergie's got good and bad mixed up tonight.
Get out of here.
I think for yellow, dude, I don't know. I don't know what would make yellow like.
We know we're getting a Bergamo, so.
Well, yeah, I know that one drop yellow. Yeah. But I'm trying to think of like a specific card or like a series of cards or something that would be cool to see.
Personally, as somebody who is really enjoying Sin, I wouldn't argue with a 4-drop that would give me an option other than Meki, as good as Meki is, because something else would be a cool option for them.
I could see that. I could actually see him printing a 4-drop. I could see that coming out.
I don't think so. I think what they're going to do is they're going to print the Bergamo. They're going to print something for Skillless Gohan, and then they'll probably print something for Lord Slug. Maybe they just don't have black unisons. They just do multicolor unisons instead. So we get an Invoker Planeswalker and a Lord Slug Planeswalker.
They're never gonna give.
Dude, I want
Invoker
an
a
Invoker
unison.
Well,
Planeswalker
do
so
they-
bad. That'd
So
be
no.
sick.
Okay, hold on. So it's not Invoker that's not going to get a unison. This is what they're never going to print, a multicolor unison. Because if they
No, but they just errata the
it'll be
counterplays to monocolored.
Oh my God, Bergie, why would they errata an entire set of cards just so they can print like 3 unisons?
I don't know.
It's so stupid. Like it would be such bad game design to not see like 2 sets in the future.
That's the magic for printing Omnath and Uro in the same standard block, because that's the totally good idea. Shoutouts to thinking ahead.
I'm
in
just
game
saying.
design.
I'm just saying. Other Dane. Speaking of Other Dane, he's the first person I heard point this out, and it's the most true thing in the world. If you create a blue-green unison, do you understand the absolute havoc that wreaks on this game? Are you ready, Dane? You're going to play a card. Does that card have barrier? Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and God seal it. Oh, it has deflect. I can't God seal it, but it's cool because my unison is blue-green. I'll just go ahead and charismatic it. Welcome
Alrighty,
to the most
maybe-
miserable play experience of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we just get planeswalkers that are monocolored that just support the archetypes. Like I could definitely see the yellow slugs thing.
Yeah.
It's the only way they do it.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope we go back to a multicolor format though, because I do like multicolor. I like options. So
I mean, but multicolor is in the formats. Like Cell and
Mhm.
Invoker still exist. The issue
But
is
I mean like it dominated by every deck is encouraged to run different colors and try out new spice and new things.
right. But here, why was it a multicolor format?
Surge leaders were broken.
Because Surge leaders were broken. So like the only way they bring multicolor back to that level is to print Surge leaders, and that created an issue.
I really want to hit on the red unison coming out in draft box,
Yes.
because I know Blake
Yes,
and I.
it's
So there's
good.
I think there's 2 things we still need to hit on in draft box. We need to hit on Bardock's crew and how excited Blake and I are for Vegito,
Yes.
and then
Yep.
we need to hit on this because you argued it with me in the chat, and it is the Piccolo Junior. I think is going to be a fantastic in Broly. I've been playing it, and like I played it into Bergie. It felt good. Like
It's really good.
it's a cheaper effect. It's a -6 to get 2 cards out. You can pull out the 3 and another 1 to start your chain, or you can grab literally anything else. I'm gonna toy with that King Piccolo card, the 3-drop double striker that goes away at the end of the turn. But you spam 2 more bodies on board that you can swing with. You build markers faster because it's whenever your opponent takes a life and it's on your turn. It's once per turn. So if they're Self-Awakener, you're getting 2 markers. You're going to be at 3 going into your turn 2. Well, I think you play at turn 2. But that's just all that aside. I'm still testing how to make it work. But I think it's just a better Kale, honestly. And so I think like running like a 4-2 split of that just to make sure you hit your unison, because I feel like I miss unison. I miss Kale a lot right now in Broly. But I think it's going to be good. I'm excited for it. I really am excited to see that Piccolo Jr.
The red unisons are interesting because like their effects, I think the effect that people immediately have the knee-jerk reaction to respond to that I think is really bad is anything that has the X in it in this game.
Yeah.
Because they've done a really good job of design, right? And they've created this thing where it's like it's a 3-cost unison. You have to have 4 markers, and then on top of that, you have to spend like 3 or 4 energy plus X.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of those things lining up in this game is just silly because it's like it's so much energy that it's like that thing better win you the game, because it's going to cost you your like 5 energy and your 6 energy turn to do anything. And even then, like the discard X cards on the 1 or the deal X damage on the red, it's like, when's the last time you played a game against a red deck where you felt like you were going to charge a 6th or a 7th energy? Like it's either winning or losing before that, because it has no way to survive that long, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's like one of those effects that you're like, deal X damage, like they take X life, and you're like, right. So the unison costs 3, and it's like a -5 effect.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you got to keep that thing alive for so long. How do you protect that thing in red other than maybe in Bulma? And then you have to like just play mega slow. So it's like I think there's some interesting unisons and there's some weird unisons that are coming. like some absolute garbage, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people will play them because people are like, I want to play, which Dane will, approve of this comment. I just want to play Bio Broly. Well, then you should not be a Dragon Ball fan. So you,
Oh, dude, I was really proud of that. I was really
What does
proud of
that
that
have to do with
message.
Broly? It looks like freaking whatever that guy's name was.
It's Swamp Thing.
I was
is
really
what
proud
it
of my
is.
response when that dropped and we put it in the chat. All right. This was, I'm not going to mention any names, but someone in the chat said that -4 is gross. And then my response was, I was hoping to never again see characters from the worst movie I have ever seen. Out of all movies in all genres throughout all of my history, Bio Broly is an affront to our humanity and clearly showed the lack of respect for it that the creators had for the fan base. You will buy hot flaming dumpster poop, and you will buy it because we put Broly in the title. Fuck that character and all it stands for. Unison looks good. So
It's not good though.
no, I don't think it's good.
Yeah, it's bad.
So
Yeah,
Vegito.
So Vegito, so I think one of the things that's really going to be interesting, and probably the thing that makes Vegito the best blue deck is 100% the Bardock's crew support, because unfortunately it's not the best in Bardock's crew. It's cool because people who like Bardock's crew are going to get to play Bardock's crew.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for the competitive scene because it's absolutely like bananas in Vegito to be able to play. The biggest issue with Vegito, right, is like early game you just survive, and then late game you have to find a way to finish, so you're trying to almost win by attrition. You're like, I can stay alive longer than you and deal more damage, and then eventually run you out of negates because we play to 8 energy, and eventually I'll just like, you will say no negates to my unison and I'll just pay 8 energy to make it a 600k swing. I think what Bardock's crew is gives it some gas early, like that. The Bardock being able to come in from the energy and replace itself at end of turn and just be a big body, and then on top of that restand and be like, hey, guess what? I now have a 20k blocker. Option 1, don't deal damage to me because I block with it every turn and then swing back. Option 2, kill it and give me value. Your choice.
No, I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a super fun deck to mess with. I love decks that give you lots of viability in the card pool, like stuff you can mess with. Like, that's why I'm loving Majin Vegeta right now. Honestly, I know people are talking about how like the aggro version is like super popular, but I am having a ton of fun kind of trying to solve that mid-range question with it. Like, how do you take it to turn 5 or 6 without like just being out of gas? And I think I think it's very viable. Like I said earlier, I went 4-1 into Bergie's Invoker going to turn 5 or 6. Typically, I think it was turn 5 actually.
You took my cards.
It's not even hand control. It's got like a hand control
You
aspect.
took all my cards. You're like, ooh, I'm gonna remove.
You didn't
like
draw
minor,
cards.
It is discard.
You didn't draw cards. I didn't take them.
You do the dark blue thing, make you drop cards.
Slow hand destruction. It's the slow.
That's the worst
I'm not
form of hand destruction. At least with aggro, it's over quick.
Oh, I could run the Android super combo, right?
Yeah,
no!
18.
No! Why would you ever run that?
But so there's that compared to like the Broly deck, which is the other deck I'm really hot on right now, and they're very opposite, right? Like I'm really hyped on Majin Vegeta because there's so much for me to toy with versus Broly, where there's a couple playset slots maybe that you can mess around with, but you're never gonna take it to something that it's not. Like Broly is kind of what it is. There's some variants you can give it, but that's about it. So lots of fun with Majin Vegeta right now.
Vegito will be interesting because Vegito presents the opportunity to make a real deck building choice where you could theoretically decide to just go hard into the blue yellow and just ignore the idea of playing Zeno.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just go hard into the blue yellow and effectively make it a full on multicolor deck because you're no longer worried about the hit on the top, like flipping a multicolor. So you just dive into it and then just avoid Zeno altogether and then just find the best unisons to play with it that give you scary effects. Play the Raditz with it, right? That's like a 19k blocker, and then you get to restand it once when you block with it and stuff. And it just gives you, there's so much utility that you can run the deck, and then your arrivals become really consistent. You can run multiple arrivals, and then maybe you even run the Zarbon and get cute with it. And you run 4 of those Zarbon yellows that run in Sin and restand a battle card, and you get yourself, it's yellow, so it doesn't get out of the archetype if you're blue yellow. It restands a battle card, so if they don't kill your ape, you just combo into the swing and restand it, and then go, hey, guess what? 20k blocker again.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's tons of stuff you can do with that deck and make it super viable, I think. So the last topic I just wanted to like touch on, because we're still getting details about it, is the evolution booster that's coming in March. So it's still a ways away, obviously. But I think it's the question ultimately is, as we continue to get more and more stuff about it, do you guys think that it's good or bad overall? I mean, reprints I think are good, but like I assume that's the perspective. But what do you think the pros are to the reprints and having access to that?
This should be the new draft box. Just plain and simple. Sorry. I've seen people talk about it online. This should be the draft box. I like this a lot more. Reprints are always good, easier to get more expensive cards and things. And having access to needed reprints like Obuni and Punishing Passion and things like that are just always helpful for the new player, and also keeping the competitive player engaged if they don't own those cards. It's like the worst feeling is seeing that your deck gets upgraded and you need to spend $200 on a playset of cards for just 4 cards for your deck to even make it competitive. And I think Evolution Boosters fix that. And I think that adding on leaders and sub themes to the set is also just such a really unique and cool idea that I hope we see more of it in the future. And I kind of hope it overshadows Draft Box and takes its place.
I'd be okay with that if it was giving us the same, like what you're talking about. If it was giving that to us, I mean, Draft Box is not used. You might as well call Draft Box pumpkin sandwiches. Like it's not being used to draft with. So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
give us something cool that we can use. Like this is
right.
Evolution boosters. Cool. I'm down.
I think so. If you ask me, I think starting with Draft Box 6, I think honestly starting with post Draft Box 5, they have now found the perfect formula. I think personally, I think Draft Box 6 is perfect. I don't think there are any cards that are universally broken. I think they did a good job of adding color and leader requirements. So it benefits you to play a card in A, a color, or B, a specific leader, and that's it. You can't just throw it. You don't just Obuni and throw it into every deck, right? If Obuni said, like if you have a tournament of power leader or something, like something where they locked it to an archetype, that card is so much less expensive because it's much more leader locked. In this game, if we've learned anything, leader and color locking cards makes a huge difference. And Draft Box 6 found that perfect middle ground. And then the Evolution Booster is exactly what you should do as a response to every year of cards printed, which is reprint the cards that are hard to get access to. I think Ribrianne and Obuni are fine. The market, they're good in the market. People like the secondary market. It's good for people who sell, as long as you reprint them in an Evolution Booster, because then what that will do is it'll contain the cost a little bit, because people will know that like if you buy them at the wrong time, it will tank your value. So then it'll control that price a little bit. So if you make it a known quantity that every year in March we get the Evolution Booster and it reprints all the hot cards, then it kind of solves that issue on its own, where like that kind of manages the cost curve, because your costs are obviously still going to go up and down. But I don't think they ever get rid of Draft Box. I think Draft Box is fine because any TCG has to offer a draft format whether or not players play it, because there are, at the end of the day, players who like to play it, and that's a format that people do enjoy. So at the end of the day, I think Evolution Booster is good. I think it's healthy for the game. I think it's the right response to stuff.
Yep.
That kind of wraps up what we were talking about every week. I know Dane's going to have a pile of editing for our conversation this week, and everyone will just get the best of the best. But if you want some of the hot takes, or if you would like the clip specifically of Bergie undeniably claiming that the one drop my cycle of cards is the worst thing that's ever happened to this game, you can private message one of us and we'll
I'm gonna make the video. I'm gonna make the video anyways. I'm gonna just clip
I didn't say that it was the worst thing ever. I said that was the worst card in the draft box.
All the big channels have like their clips page and then like their main page. So I'm gonna just make the video. That's gonna be
Bergie's
good.
gonna get a specific clip on our channel.
So I need a thumbnail for Bergie's hot take. I need a Bergie's hot take thumbnail.
It's just gonna be Bergie going like this. It's a Fire Elmo version of Bergie. Yes. I can create it. So
perfect.
I
can make it.
How about this? You make a blue deck.
Bergie.
I'll make a deck that runs the mine. We see how it goes.
I bet.
I mean, that's not what we're talking about though. But
okay.
But thanks for joining us. Thank you guys for sticking with us, even when we have our hot takes and rants and rambles, and Dane fixes a lot of that. So it's thanks to Dane and thanks to the listeners. If you haven't already, subscribe, follow us. Thanks for hanging out. And this has been the Outcast Haven podcast. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.